Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode. We are approaching the 1 year anniversary of this puppy, and I am pretty excited to introduce to you Lindsay Lee, who has kind of been a part of my journey for a long time. We've known each other for over a decade, which is mind blowing. And we've crossed paths in many unique ways, and I'm pretty pumped to bring you the lovely wisdom that is Lindsay Lee. So, with that, would you like to say hello?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Of course. Well, let's give the listeners a reader's digest little look-see into who you are and what you do. And I think it would be fun to also circle back to how we met and how we've stayed connected over the years. So yeah, let's just start there. Who are you?
Hi. I go by Lindsay Lee, and I'm an artist. And on this Phoenix transition, this glorious ride of life, I started out in academia. I was in education for 11 years. 6 of those years, I was a professor. The pandemic hit. I was in a massive car accident. I walked away with a traumatic brain injury, and it birthed the glorious transition that I'm still riding the wave of change, and so grateful to be a witness to my own transition and help facilitate that for other women as well. So um,
Mm.
currently investigating a lot of somatic dance movement and healing the relationship to the body, creating safety with and for the body, and a lot of inner child work is a part of that.
I love it. So, do you remember when we met?
I don't remember the exact occasion, but I do remember how we met, and we met in a dance fitness class called Booty Beat, by our glorious friend Don Mamoni. And Don the Bomb was rocking out as the instructor, and we were in a pole fitness class together. And I can't believe the journey that you and I have been on. It's been really incredible to witness your transformation, which was so inspiring for me and gave me the gusto to take the leap of faith too. So thank you for leaning into your vulnerability and listening to your intuition, because it's been so inspiring for me in my journey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking back because as I'm about to move, so I moved here in the beginning of 2011. So 12 years ago, and it was shortly after. So I know it was around that time. It's 10 plus years that we first met. And I do think it's fun to kind of circle back because I've shared this on the podcast before that, you know, that time where I kind of got my boss, my engineering boss, Kelly Blake, if you're listening to this, hello, beautiful. She was like, I own a gym, like an all women's gym. You should come check it out. You're new to Sarasota. And I'm like, sounds wonderful. And I went after work and I walk in and there's stripper poles everywhere, which she purposefully left that little tidbit out. And I was beyond petrified, but also a little like intrigued and excited. And everyone was welcoming. And honestly, I was hooked. I pretty much went every day after that. That's where I met you. They had a plethora of different classes. And I think it was the first time where I really saw women, including myself, bond and let go of competition and like wear whatever we wanted and just let it all hang out and have fun and be okay in our bodies and feel safe in our bodies and work through our relationship with our body. And I was in the best shape of my life because it was like so empowering. It was so fun to be in sisterhood with women, right? And just to feel safe. And I just fell in love with it. It was like the first time that I was like, oh, this is what it means to nourish your body and do something you love and not beat your body up and like really follow what intuitively my body was asking for in the form of movement. And then I started teaching, which Kelly also threw me into. She's like, you're going to be a pole fitness instructor. And then like, she pretty much forced me into it. And then I kind of lost it for a bit. And I think we're going to talk a bit about, you know, our journeys. I'm trying to remember, like, you know, life got in the way for me in terms of like, I stopped doing pole fitness. Like, I don't know. I called it a phase. I was like, all right, I'm out of this phase. This isn't like I'm an adult. I was working my way up in the corporate ladder in the engineering world. And it just kind of was like, my work here with this is done. But I realize now that it was like, and I want to talk to you about this with your artistry and your creative expression. It was just like such a foundational piece of who I am now. So yeah, I would love for you to share like that piece. And also, what were you doing? Like, I don't even know how long you lived in Sarasota for. So if you just kind of want to dive into what happened during those 10 years and all of the moves and all of the change in relationship and the change in career path and all of the things, I think would be really fun to explore.
Yeah, I moved to Sarasota, Florida, in 2004. I went there for undergrad. I went to Ringling College of Art and Design, where I met my now ex-husband. You know, we quickly jumped into a relationship, and I got married around the time you and I met, and I was working as a graphic designer and trying to get my way into grad school so that I could get my master's degree and then become a professor. I was very focused on this one track mind of how my career was going to go. And, you know, the economy sort of fell apart in 2008. And so grad schools were flooded with applications, and I applied to schools for 6 years straight. I was just so determined I was like, come hell or high water, this is what I'm going to do, because that's, you know, this is the only way that an artist can make it, is through academia. And I was just so hell bent on creating a strong foundation for myself. And really, I look at those 6 years and I'm like, I'm really grateful that I went through those trying times of getting into grad school, because it allowed me the opportunity to transform my artistic practice. So I started out in painting and printmaking, and before I knew it, I was using my own body as a means of expression. And so I was painting on my body and then taking photographs of my painted self in front of my art pieces, and using digital formats to create a story based off of the performances. And that's really what triggered getting into grad school. And so then I moved across country and moved into Idaho. I went to the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, and spent 4 years there. I got 2 degrees, one in studio art and one in theater directing and performance. And I really just trusted that my body needed to move more and more, and created these performances, wrote and directed plays, and really started to find my own voice as a creative entity and really come into my own power. And that's when my marriage fell apart. And I was like, okay, cool. So,
And what year was that? Because I think it's fun. So it was like 20, we'll call it like 2012-ish that we met. When did you go to grad school in Idaho?
2014.
2014. Okay. And when did your marriage fall apart?
The end of 2017.
Okay. 2017. So I think it's helpful to
Yeah.
see the sequence of events here. Okay. Tell us more.
At the end of grad school, I moved to California. I think I was there for like 3 weeks. Had this like existential crisis of like, what am I doing with my life? I don't know. And so I was pulled back to New Jersey, where I'm initially from. I ended up taking care of my grandmother, who has dementia. My mom had surgery, and it was such a pivotal moment. I was sitting on the couch processing the fact that I was filing for divorce. And I just had this realization that like everybody on this couch, my mother, my grandmother, myself, all of which we all have L names, Lillian, Linda, Lindsay. And I was like, we all have broken hearts.
Hmm.
Holy shit. It was just like this sinking feeling of like, I feel really called to assist women in transforming and healing our hearts. And I didn't really know what that looked like. And I didn't know how that would manifest, but I just remember feeling that call. And, I signed up to sell Beauty Counter, and I thought maybe that's the avenue, like creating a team of women and supporting women and empowering women that way. And that didn't quite fit. That didn't quite feel it. And I was like, okay, but I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm trying. I was teaching for Rutgers University. I was teaching gender identity, a course in gender identity, and I was like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the avenue. Nope. Got the call to move to South Carolina. I taught for Coastal Carolina. I taught acting, and then moved back into the art department. And I was like, this is temporary. I know that this location is temporary, but maybe academia is like my home, that this feels like a grounding place for me. Sure enough, the universe came in and was like, nope, it's not quite it. And in July of 2020, I was in a massive car accident, and I walked away with a traumatic brain injury. And I felt so disconnected from my body and so out of sorts. This healing the TBI has been an incredible journey of coming back home and understanding my relationship to my body, understanding my relationship with my body, and has been a massive spiritual journey more than anything. It's been
Hmm.
it's been really incredible. And that's when I took your first workshop of oh my gosh, can you help me remember the title?
Well, you took some like free workshops, but you took my first ever group program, like in this new realm of embodied spirituality, and it was at the time called the Awakened Woman Circle, and it was November of 2021. But I want to also go back one second, because there was also a point where like you and I, so let's think about this. Like life gets in the way. You moved, right? Like things happen. We're doing our thing. Like we're connected on social media, but we didn't really like stay in touch per se. But I'm trying to remember how we reconnected. Like, was it through Beauty Counter? I know you ended up being my assistant temporarily while you were taking care of your grandmother, and you were in transition, and you just kept saying like, I don't know what it is, but like there's a reason why we're connected. And like you kept trying things on with like, what is it? Is it Beauty Counter? Like, am I supposed to work with you? Am I supposed to see what you're doing? So do you remember how we reconnected?
Yes, actually, Dawn Mamoni.
You
God bless her.
did?
Yeah, she
She's
she
at it
was
again.
it's always Dawn. I love her so much. She was selling Beauty Counter, and then she invited me onto her team, and she was affiliated with you because she was on your team. And so that brought us,
Okay.
the three of us were on this call, and I remember feeling like this massive energetic shift. I don't know if you remember this, but I
I do
literally had
not.
a panic attack on the phone. I was so caught off guard by this energetic shift that I was experiencing by the three of us. And we were just shifting our all of our vibrations. And I remember like I totally lost the feeling in my feet, and I was like, I don't know what's happening to me right now. Something's happening to me. And I like totally lost my shit. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be okay. And you really talked me through it, and that it really was gonna be okay, and that facing the fear or leaning into the fear was part of this journey. And again, I didn't quite understand it. It wasn't within the context of Beauty Counter, but that conversation ended up being the context of quitting academia and moving again and doing what I'm doing now. So I sort of like think about that conversation frequently. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, because I don't remember. I mean, I remember slightly, but I don't remember the specifics. But now I remember it was kind of like an opportunity call where you weren't a part of the company yet, and like the opportunity was being presented to you from Dawn and myself. And sure enough, like when change is on the horizon, like when we're presented with transformation, fear rears its ugly head. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's also supportive for those of you listening. Like we don't realize the impact that we have on people. Like I don't remember the details of that call, but you, because you were having such a visceral experience, where it kind of got one of your first tastes of like, oh, this is what it feels like to meet yourself, and and to know that change is on the horizon. I love that. So, and I also didn't realize, because it's funny, like time is so weird right now. And I know as like evolution is happening, and since the pandemic, and, since everything is speeding up on the planet, like time is so weird. And I also think it's interesting that you had this car accident. And I remember, oh, I forgot this. You were working for me and you had to stop because of the accident. I was like trying to remember how that happened. So I think it's interesting that it happened during the pandemic, and like it was a time where the world was still shut down in so many ways, and you were really like, there was no option for you, because still a lot of people were not shutting down and were not getting quiet, and were having a really challenging time, and you were faced with no other option but to slow down from working in academia, working with me. So let's talk about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely forced me to face all the stuff that I didn't want to face, that I was running away from. I kept thinking like, oh, if I take on teaching this class or take on teaching this workshop, if I get another part-time job, I can, just go. I can then carry myself financially. And then later on down the line, then I'll be able to do what it is that I really want to do. And I just, it's so funny because like the universe, my higher self was like, absolutely not. Like how much are you going to keep running from yourself? And it is so interesting that it was during the pandemic, because I had just moved to South Carolina. I was only there for maybe 7 months, and I really didn't know anybody in that location. I wasn't near any family, so I was totally isolated, and I was absolutely forced to just be in my own little, my own little apartment. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is like, all of my senses have basically gone offline. I get to totally piece this back together inch by inch, piece by
Mhm.
piece. It was really intense. It was really uh
Yeah.
it was a big task to do isolated. But looking back, I'm like, there was no other way that I was going to surrender unless something like that big had
Yeah.
gotten my attention, really grabbed me and said, you absolutely have to do this.
Yeah. I love that you point on this. Like, this is the relatability piece of like when we're in avoidance or escapism, right? And like, okay, I'm just going to do more. I'm going to like work more jobs, and I'm going to seek more opportunities, and I'm going to keep going. And this, unfortunately and fortunately, like I love looking at life through this lens. Like, this accident could have absolutely been a part of your divine plan already incarnating in this lifetime. We don't know. Or it could have been like you were so moving off course that spirit was like, nope, we're gonna just, it's gonna feel super traumatic. It's gonna be hard, but like you're gonna be more than okay. You're gonna be better than you were on the other side. And that's what I love about it, is it's like, we don't know. So it almost takes the pressure off to not beat ourselves up. Like, yeah, you were like needing a course correction, but how do we not know that like you didn't sign up for that needing of the course correction in order for your soul to grow, which I love. Like, I just feel like if we can all really take that in for a moment. And one of my favorite things about you is because you're a lot like me, and my favorite thing about you is you're just like me. Let's edit that out. Just kidding. But like, I feel like there's a resonance between us, because we can like be in the shit. I call it the sacred shit, and know that it sucks and it's uncomfortable and to not want to be there. but like, it's not victim and complaining energy. Like we might have those moments where we're like, ugh, but we still have this perspective of like, I know that there's something more here. Like, okay, like you knew, okay, my senses are offline. I got to piece them back together. Okay, I have got to listen. Okay, I have got to be still. Okay, clearly something wasn't working. So, have you always been that way? Or can you maybe give some practical support on like how you move through that? Because I think it's something that comes more effortless to me now. Like it's just who I am. And it's like I just know inside in my core that we're here for evolution. And that means we're going to get shaken up at times. And it means we're going to think we know what the right answer is or the right path is. And we actually don't. We think we have control and we don't. And so I think there's just this softening that's begun to happen with me where I really just don't resist the disruption anymore like I used to. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think that there's always been this inner compass, this inner knowing of, okay, trust in the process, but then the ego sort of would take over and override and try and like steer my way out of it, or again pile on to sort of distract me from the actual lesson. I really feel like the traumatic brain injury was not the hardest lesson. I think honestly the hardest lesson in my journey was when my father died, and I was again hit with the 2x4 of, you absolutely have to stop and deal with your father wound, your father baggage, because he wasn't involved in my life. And suddenly when he left his body, I was hit with this traumatic abandonment, and
Yeah.
the abandonment wound. And it really, I don't know any other way of saying this, it forced me to sort of deal with and create my own sense of safety, um, in a way that I had never learned before, at least in this lifetime. And so, and then it happened again when I had to go through the divorce, of creating my own sense of safety. What does that mean? What does my inner compass want, rather than taking care of somebody else or doing it for somebody else? What is it that I came here to do and create, and what is my purpose? And so when all of my senses went offline, because I also got COVID too, while a few months into this traumatic brain injury. So like I lost my sense of smell, my sense of taste. Most of my body actually went numb from the traumatic brain injury. Uh, you know, a lot of my thoughts were not solid enough for them to even come out of my mouth. So I was saying what I could say rather than what I wanted to say. It really was this piecing together. And I I allowed the emotion to come up whenever it came up, and I would breathe through it. And whenever that would happen, I would sort of like move it. I don't know any other way of saying this, move the emotion forward so that it could pass through me and center into the truth of me, the core of me. And I heard my inner knowing, my inner voice say, there's a gift here. We just don't quite know what it is. It will make sense. But I also knew that it was more than a concussion. I also knew that this traumatic brain injury was going to be a long haul. And next week will be 3 years of the anniversary. And I am truly able to recognize that it has been drastic changes in my life, but they have all been gifts. Every single one of them has been a ginormous gift. And what has phoenixed from it is a version of me that I am so grateful to be. And I'm able to hold compassion for people in a way that I never could before. And I'm able to empathize with people in a way that I never could before, just at a deeper level. And it's because I have learned how to hold space for myself in a brand new way that I'm then able to hold space for other people.
Yeah. So beautiful. And that's why we get these jolts, for this very reason. And so you're just at a place where you recognize that, and it doesn't make it any more comfortable or easier per se when we're in it, right? But you have now so much evidence of like, okay, this happened. And now, and look where I'm at in my evolutionary journey. This happened. Now look at the woman I've become. This happened. Now look at how I'm able to be in relationship with this person. So I do have a question though. What year did your father pass away, for timeline's sake?
That was in 2013. Yeah.
2013. Okay. So it's like that almost started it. Like it's like, so 2013, so it was 2013. And then was it 2017 that the marriage fell apart? And then the traumatic brain injury happened in 2020, right? So it's like noticing every couple of years, it's like traumatic loss,
Yeah.
right? It's a divorce, right? With who you think you're going to be with forever. It's having your physical body not be able to function in the way, right? It's like all of these things. And it's interesting because for me, it's been like every decade ish. And it's like, they're all different. It's like a health crisis. It's like losing someone. It's almost drowning when I was a child, right? It's literally having a dark night of the soul and spiritual awakening and feeling like disconnected and feeling confused and feeling really lost and isolated for quite a bit of time, which is why the body, like, it's like I knew I needed to come back into my body in order to integrate what I knew. Yeah. One thing that when you were saying forced, right? I love, like, because I don't like to use that word. I'm like, okay, forced just sounds like,
right. I didn't.
It feels a little like, but I love catapulted, right? It's like if you're listening and you have a word that feels like more enlivening, like when we have these jolts, like we have these catapults, or they're like initiations. But so maybe we'll say it catapulted you into this beautiful state that you're in.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I was like, I know that that's not the word that I want to use, but that's the only one that's coming to mind.
And I say it too. And I think it's like, I dance with words a lot, as many of you know, and force, like sometimes it's like, maybe the universe does force, like, it's like, I don't know, like force, power, right? Power versus force. So usually force is like deemed to be lower in the map of consciousness scale, but doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So maybe it's like, instead of forcing us, it empowered us into this next phase of our life. And one thing that you were talking about, I had this visual drop in, I don't even know, like sometime last year, around like when you were talking about your ego driving the car, or you didn't say it that way, but you were talking about like your ego, you started to notice when it was like your ego making the decisions in academia and like all of these things. And, you know, I think we see it, and I've been really like investigating this in my own way, and starting to detach from the spiritual, like the spiritual world in terms of like dogma, and how everything gets kind of put in a box, no matter what end of the spectrum you're at, whether it's from a political spectrum, whether it's from where you're, you know, religious or scientific or, you know, spiritual or anywhere in between. And, you know, a lot of times in the spiritual world, it's like, oh, we want to get rid of the ego, like the ego is bad. It's like that same premise of like trying to make something go away, trying to make something wrong, like really beating ourselves up about our ego and like wondering how to get rid of it or like force it to do something else. And one thing that dropped in was, and I was listening to Mateus De Stefano talk about this, and I had this visual come in around the ego and the higher self. And the ego is the gas in the car, and our higher self is driving the car. And that, like, whatever Mateus was saying, because half the time, like, so much of it is going over my head, but I know that I'm like receiving what he's saying on a cellular level. It made so much sense. Like, we want to be in the driver's seat, not the ego. Like, we get to be in the driver's seat, the innate part of us, like our essence, right? Whatever we want to call it, the divine, eternal part of us. And then the ego moves us, like the ego propels us. The ego is like the secondary piece that comes in to support. It's our personality. It's like, while you're listening to this right now, if you're still listening, like, you're enjoying this conversation, you're enjoying our personalities, you're enjoying the storytelling and the creative expression from Lindsay and myself. And so that is such a difference, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm just not letting my ego run the show anymore, but I am embracing my ego, right? I am loving my ego, all of the flaws, all of the conditioning, all of the personality, all of the needing to be right, all of the thinking I have it figured out. So I did just want to mention that for support for people. And I'd love to know how that lands for you.
Oh, that feels so true. And I love that analogy, right? Like the ego is not bad. The ego has been created so that we can, like, I don't know, protect ourselves and navigate this world.
Yeah.
And it makes for some fun. Like we all
Yes.
have these glorious personalities and we get to like sort of bounce around, and that's really wonderful, and it's great to be different.
Yeah.
Different is not good or bad, different is just different. And when we surrender to the ego, it can sort of like take over and lead us into some, oh, okay, that wasn't the best decision, but all right, like cool, moving on, moving forward. But when we're able to separate ourselves and recognize like, oh, okay, I don't want the ego in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Like I truly want my higher self to come in and take over. Okay, what is my purpose? And and when we've got that dissonance, like that's when the universe comes in and is like, no, we're just gonna like realign you a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the analogy of the car, right? Because everybody can like see it's literally, it's kind of how I say, like, the mind is in service to the heart. You can say the same thing. The heart is in the driver's seat and the mind is the fuel, like, right?
Yeah.
So the mind is now in reverence to my heart. Like, and of course, there's many times where I'm like reality checking. I just shared something on Instagram about reality checking, right? It's like, this is what we do. It's like, right, we always want to be like, is this mine? Is this not mine? Is this my ego or is this my essence? Like, is this my truth or did I hear this from somewhere else? And that is why I believe incarnating on this planet is so evolutionary, and why we come here and why we choose to come here, knowing that the quantum growth is going to happen because there's so much of that dissonance that happens. And I think the theme of this conversation is really, the more that we soften into the dissonance and just get curious and explore and not try to fix it and just be at peace with it, in that acceptance is actually where, you know, the liberation lives, and where the wisdom we glean lives, and where the teachings live, and where the gratitude starts to come in, and where we're like, oh wow, that sucked, but like, and I probably wouldn't want to do that again, but I would not change that for the world. You know, I would not change a single thing.
Yeah, it's so great. I love that you just said soften into the dissonance, because that's truly what this journey has been, of just like, okay, if this pain that I were experiencing, if I could just soften and hold it and cradle it like a little baby, right? Like then it doesn't become so sharp. Then it doesn't
Yeah.
become so unbearable. Then it's like, oh, okay, I'm creating a new relationship with myself, my physical body, and my mental body, right? My inner child. I'm cradling her in a brand new way. And when I soften into that, it really does dissipate that sharpness
Yeah.
of that, and that discomfort of, oh, I don't want to feel that. Oh, I don't really quite like that. But actually, yeah, let me hold that. Let me love that part of me that just needs to be loved.
Yeah.
And then it's not so
Yeah.
painful. Yeah.
And as I've been exploring conscious conception for a long time, and like exploring this, you know, future motherhood journey for myself, like, I've watched so many podcasts. I mean, this has been like years in the making of my fascination with physiological birth, and like literally how the surrender and the softening of the physical pain actually leads to the oxytocin release, which then creates more oxytocin, which then blocks the pain receptors. And I believe it's the same for when we're feeling emotions as well. And again, like, nature shows us everywhere. Like, right, we know, like, when we contract, it hurts more. Like, when we resist, it hurts more. And right, we just want to be like, oh, that hurts. And what do? We like shrivel up. And so that's the invitation, is the next time, and start with something simple, like, you stub your toe or you get a paper cut or somebody says something to you and you're like, ouch, that hurt, whatever it is, try that on, like the softening and the dissonance, whatever that looks like for you. Like, how can you allow yourself to be in it a little bit more, as opposed to like, I'm going to scroll social media, or I'm going to immediately go do this thing to avoid what I'm feeling physically, or whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So I'm trying to remember, when did you move to Austin?
Um,
Do you remember?
hmm. Yeah, I've been here a year and a half. So December of 2021, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my program, which really encompasses a lot of what we're talking about, which makes sense why you said yes to this, right? It's like meeting our emotions, like reconnecting with our body, understanding, pain, pleasure cycles and what we do as humans, and as to avoid an escapism, and really meeting all parts of ourselves with love and tenderness. So in November of 2021, again, I don't remember the sequence of events, but I remember you basically reaching out to me. I don't know if you remember the exact sequence of events, but reaching out to me and being like, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to do your program. So can we talk about that for a moment? Like, how did you know? What did it feel like? So this was right before you moved. So you were, and it was a very intuitive move. So knowing you, I know that when you were re-piecing yourself back together from this accident, you begin to connect with yourself in deeper ways and start to connect intuitively with yourself and make decisions from that space. So yeah, talk about your decision, like to say yes to this program without like knowing it or understanding it, having fear still, questioning everything with job security and moving. I think that would be supportive for people.
Yeah. So actually, that summer of 2021, I was processing a breakup, the first relationship since my divorce, and I had really opened up vulnerably to this person in a way that I never had before, and so I was processing a lot of grief, and I visited my sister in the Austin area, and by day 3, I was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to move here. Okay, that's cool. So I'll go back and I'll teach for one more semester." And I was still in physical therapy, and I just knew that I wasn't healing in the way that I could have, and so I was just sort of like turning the dial of turning my frequency into my intuition a little bit deeper, and I was like, that's okay, we're getting close. Okay, we're getting close. Not quite there yet, not quite there yet. And I saw you posting some movement, and I could see and witness how you had let go and surrendered to a deeper version of yourself. And I was like, my soul was like, whatever she's doing, that's what you need to be doing. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, because I'm not like, I don't really consider myself a dancer, which is hilarious because that's like what I'm doing.
And I don't either. I still don't.
And I just, something within me was like, felt this spark, this magnetic pull. And when you started talking about this program that you were launching, come to this free workshop, and I immediately was like, okay, when is it? Plugging it in my phone, writing it down on my calendar. Like, I need to be here. I'm not quite sure why, but I hear the call, and so I'm going to show up. And I was scared shitless. Like, anytime that like the camera was on me and I was moving, and I was like, I can't even really do anything. I can't even really stand up. All I can do is like sit and like sort of move my shoulders, and that's all I got, because that's all the energy that my body could, move in. But it was like this one hint after another, like I was being breadcrumbed, and I had nothing else to do except follow that call, because anytime that I resisted that call, that intuition of follow this lead, like my stomach would turn into knots. And so I was responding in such a visceral, physical way that I had no other choice but in order to relieve this tension that I was experiencing, okay, just go and do the scary thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is actually very similar to what you were experiencing on that beauty counter opportunity call, right?
Exactly.
And I feel, and I actually know this, and I know you know this, like that accident stripped you down to your foundation so that you could actually be able to discern, oh wow, when I resist, it feels this uncomfortable. Okay, I'm not doing, like, I'm gonna follow even when it doesn't make sense. And I love that you took that risk, because there are people who still have, you know, who don't listen. But also I think it's important because so many of us have lost our ability to listen. And I know I was there, and I know you were there. And it does take courage, and it does take a willingness, and it's a risk, because you're exposing yourself and you're meeting parts of you that you've stuffed down for a long time. But the magic that you have experienced, like literally, okay, so let me just talk about this for a second. Again, my timing is terrible. Like, I don't have any concept of time. But I remember, well, first of all, I remember your therapist being like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because like all of a sudden you told me that you were like improving so rapidly.
Yeah, my
And
physical therapist was like, keep dancing because I have to up your challenges. And I was like, that's great. Like suddenly out
yeah,
of quote unquote nowhere, I had suddenly like jumped a massive step within my healing. And I was like, okay, this is something I'm gonna keep
yeah.
doing this. Yeah.
And, you know, I've seen a lot of transformation in this work in my programs, but with you, because it was physical and it was neurological, like I knew you intimately, like not all of my clients I know intimately. So I knew like, oh my gosh, this is happening, happening extremely fast. And you reminded me again so much of myself, because like as a mentor, I can't do the work for anyone, right? Like it's like I open the container up, but like your willingness to just go dive deep and go all in was so palpable. And I can't remember, so the way that I was offering this program at the time, where there were 3 rounds of 8 weeks, and
Yeah.
was it the second or third series that you were like, the day before we were literally about to start, you're like, I can't do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'm afraid. Like you had just moved to Austin, like you were figuring everything out with switching gears from being a professor, et cetera, et cetera. So do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I think it so I felt some of that fear before the second round, but I definitely felt it right before the third round. I was
Yeah.
like, I know that I said I gave you my yes, but I think I got to take it back. Like I really felt so much like, oh shit, like shit's about to get real. Like that's what it
Yeah.
felt like, because I absolutely, at the core of me, I knew that it was going to be super transformational, which it
Yeah.
was. And the ego freaks out right before
Yeah.
your spirit like goes through that energetic upheaval, like that energetic frequency change, and the ego wants to pull you back towards the familiar. And
Yeah.
that's what was happening. And I was like, I think I think even after the first session of the third workshop, I still was like, Linz, I don't know if I could do this. Like, my bank account potentially could go into negative. Like, I really like, I'm freaking out here. And you're like, and then I had this moment of this amazing centeredness of there's power and incredible, incredible power in witnessing. And I was like, at the very least, I can witness my sisters in this workshop. At the very least, they can witness me. And and that's what like held me in it.
Yeah.
And that second session was so moving and powerful. And you sent me a message. You were like, you're not allowed to quit. That was epic. I was like, okay, I'm in it. All right, we're doing this.
It's so funny. See, it's like, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that like my mind just, and that's the difference. Like, right. When I'm holding a container, right. Like I send messages, I follow intuitively. And sometimes I feel like I'm still like in my heightened state when I'm sending these messages, and then I kind of forget about it. But I think it's important, right? Because there's a lot of themes that again keep coming up around like, and I feel in terms of resistance and like wanting to, right, go back to the old paradigm and to say like this is too hard, or I can't do this, or money blocks, time blocks, whatever it is. And I feel like what's made me successful as an entrepreneur is my ability, because I know like I have all the same blocks. I've invested a lot in myself in various ways because I love growth and I follow my heart, even when it doesn't make sense to the logical mind. Um, but I feel like I've always had this ability to like hold people in what I know to be true for them. Like, it's like I can see their potential, and I'm like, I would rather blow this relationship up and have Lindsay never talk to me again than not like help her, remind her who the heck she is in this moment. And like, that's literally how I move through life. Like, like I get to be unattached to her answer because ultimately it's up to her. But if I don't remind her and hold her and support her and give her the space to process that and have her come back to her own empowerment, then I feel like I'm doing a disservice as a mentor. Um, and what's,
Sorry to
go
interrupt, which
ahead.
is why I think you and I connect so much, because that is exactly how I mentor too.
Yeah.
And exactly how I held my students in academia too. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to reaffirm that. Yeah.
So what's funny is like you almost quit at the end, and like literally you went from having this neurological damage to like insanely, I don't even know how to, like, it was like, oh my gosh, temple keeper, like priestess of the night, like moving energy, but also because of your artistry, like it was always art. Like everybody moves in their own way and has their own resonance. Like we all have our own resonance. And of course, we have different archetypes that come through depending on like what is being asked to emerge. But with you, it was just like, oh my gosh, like I remember you. Like I'm like bowing to you. I feel this connection that you have to yourself. I feel you in your power. You're moving in ways that I've never seen you move. And it's not dance. Like it is truly expression from this deep core inside of you that is moving you. And it is so healing to the people watching. Like I felt so blessed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally get to hold this container and just receive the medicine of these women coming home to themselves. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I don't know if there's anything that you want to add, but it was pretty remarkable to like have the recordings of the first time that we moved together, like first day of school vibes, and to
Ah,
see within a year how your body was communicating was epic.
it was huge, but also a testament to you, because I felt so safe to be able to go there. I felt so safe to be able to dive in deep and go full throttle. I absolutely uh I'm so grateful that I had this career as an artist. I've been studying art since seriously since I was 13. So I had this creative muscle. I just have never really used it through my body in this way before. And to truly move from like just my shoulders, stand up, sit down right away, like, okay, cool, I'm going to do some things with my hands and my arms because that's all I can do, to suddenly like I'm moving in a full way and expressing it and rolling around on the floor in a way that I was like, oh, this is what needs to be communicated. I really don't need to rely on my words. Truly, my body is expressing what needs to be expressed, and I'm connecting to my higher self in a way that I've never connected before. This is truly is a moving meditation.
Yeah.
I'm healing things not only on the physical level, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial level, where I'm like, oh, I'm understanding this work now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's so experiential. And I mean, gosh, there's so many places I want to go. I'm like, okay, do you have time to go? I know that we have like, do you have time to go a little bit over? Because I feel like
Yes,
there's
yes,
important things we get to talk about.
yeah.
So, okay, you graduate from this year-long process, and again, I have no concept of time. Well, I guess I kind of do. Yeah, it was pretty shortly after, like it was December of 2021 that the graduation happened, and we started working together privately in February of 2023. I remember that because of our contract, but you reached out to me and I can't remember what you asked, but tell people like exactly what you texted me if you remember.
There's something about like, hey, do you know about certification programs for coaching? Something along those lines. I was reaching out to various coaching program certifications to become like a life coach, and I was like, maybe I could like interweave my art background and healing and go that avenue. And I think at that point like 4 various phone calls with different certification programs, and I was just like, let me just ask Lindsay this thing, because I'm not really sure which avenue to go to. And
Yeah.
you you responded back like immediately, like, you don't need another certificate. How many programs have you been through? You don't need another certificate. You don't need another piece of paper. Like, how many degrees do you have? You don't need another one. And I was like, oh yeah, I really don't. I really do have it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And this like wave came over me of it was just this wave of remind her who she is. And I remember we got on the phone shortly after, and I had no intent, like at the time I was doing private coaching, but I had never really done it in this way. Like all of a sudden I had this massive wave of like, you can help her, like you get to help her do it her way. And I had all of this information come through of like how it got to look and what we were going to create together. And we got on the phone and I asked you a bunch of questions, and I think I shared with you like what we could create together. And I think you were like, I don't know why it's that same feeling. Like I'm supposed to say yes, even though I have no idea how I'm going to pay for this, right? Because it's a much bigger investment for private coaching. And you did it. Like you literally did it. You signed. Okay. So let's talk about your resistance to signing the contract though, and what transpired with that in terms of like the money coming in before, or like, right, it's like the money came in after you executed the contract, but you had that same feeling. I love talking about this because you had that same feeling of, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable inside my body to not sign the damn thing, that I'm going to sign it. So let's talk about that.
So funny because like we're talking, we're talking numbers. We had formulated the contract and you sent it to me in email and I didn't open it. And I was like, I can't open this thing. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. The logical mind was like, set up the job first and then be able to pay for it. And then, get all your ducks in a row first. And, so I got the email and it's in my inbox and I marked it as important and I let it get buried and it just goes down. And I'm like, and the more that I just allowed it to get buried, the more that my stomach did this and was in such knots. And I'm like, okay, let's breathe into that for a minute. How does it feel not signing this contract? And immediately the knots just got tighter and tighter and tighter. And then I said, okay, how does it feel to sign this contract and work with Lindsay in this way? And immediately everything just opened up and was in flow. And I was like, okay, Lord, higher self, spirit guides, universe, all of the above, to the divine supreme God, divine father, divine mother, I know that I'm meant to do this thing. You've got to bring in the money. Okay. Like I felt like Jerry Maguire, show me the money, right? Like, cool. So I signed it and I sent it to you and I put the phone down and then I'm pretty sure like I went and like shook it all out. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why this is happening, but okay, cool. I'm just trusting. I'm trusting. I'm trusting. I'm trusting. And then literally a week later, I was promoted. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I got like a dog watching gig that would totally pay for the first month. And I was like, all right, here, cool. Like you got it. Yeah, we're going to go do this thing. And every single month it's been like, oh, okay, cool. This easy flow of
Yeah.
bringing in the money and then sending it off, bringing in the money and then sending it off. And I'm like, all because I'm living in alignment.
Yeah.
All
Oh, I
right.
have full body chills right now. And this is why it's such a delight to work together, because like you take those risks and you've had enough evidence of like, when I'm in alignment, I know how to ask my body, how to ask my, higher self, inner guide, is this for me? Is this not for me? Like, how to feel it. And even when your mind's like, whoa, abort the mission, like, this is not how we do life.
Right.
You still follow it. And I think it's really important for me to share vulnerably, like, all of my private packages are different, and there's the part of my logical mind that like wants to have a formula. Like, I've actually never actually mentored in this particular way, and this, like, everything dropped in.
Yeah.
When we had this conversation, it was like, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to be different, because it's business coaching. Like, but I don't consider myself a business coach, because it's like ritualizing, right? Like, the first 3 months we really spent building the foundation. Like, it's like, trust me, like, we are not doing anything until we know exactly who you are, how you want to serve, what is in full alignment. And then we're going to get into the experimentation for the next 3 months, which is where we're at the end of that right now. Then we're going to launch, then we're going to be seen, then we're going to create, then we're going to be visible.
Yeah.
And then the last 3 months is really the refinement and rinsing and repeating, and like bringing things through. And so it's like I'm bringing elements of the business coaches that I've had, but also just like inside of me, I know how I like to run my business and how it gets to feel. And I feel like us having this co-created relationship is helping me evolve, because it's helping me trust that I get to, for those that want it, which I've had people come to me for business coaching. I've had them on, that initial call, and they're crying and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this way before. And then all of a sudden they're like, I decided to go with this program where I can get this structure and this certificate. And it's like, not from a place of judgment, but not everybody's ready to work in this way, because it
Yeah.
is very deep. And yes, I provide so much structure, and like, we need the structure, but there's so much room for, we are not moving forward until we are in full alignment with exactly how you get to serve at this time. So I really want to thank you for that. I feel like, I feel like our calls, I love coming to our calls, and we express gratitude to each other all the time, because I feel like we really are meeting each other. And it's that piece of like true co-creation, truly meeting people, me really being like, I've never done this before, but it feels natural.
Yeah.
And you trusting me in that. And now we are, as we're recording this, 1 week away from your launch. When this launches, it'll be at the end of the week.
Yeah.
of your program, and it's almost full. There's only a few spots left. So
Actually,
talk about it.
I'm so excited. It's called The Journey Within. It's a somatic dance movement, and there's a lot of inner child work. It's creating safety both with and for your body, connecting you to your breath, and surrendering to your body's desired movements. And yeah, and we're going to be talking about all the things, past traumas, goals, how you see your futuristic self, embodying that empowerment of your best, your highest and best self. And yeah, the intimacy, self-intimacy, intimacy in relationships, all of it. We're really going there. And there's only 10 seats available, and 7 of those are full. And I'm so excited, because the women who are stepping forward are ready. And it's so exciting that I have been through a similar journey of, I'm not quite sure why, but I feel like I have to say yes to this. And so I get to witness it like you witnessed it in me. And I'm so excited. It starts July 28th. It's my birthday, and it feels like the perfect time to what a glorious momentum for my own rebirth is essentially why I'm launching it on my birthday.
And I love that this was the first time I ever titled, it was a 9-month container. Again, like I had never offered a 9-month container before. I either did 6 or 12-month contracts, and I called it Rebirth. And I love that, right? Like we're on this journey, and that's why I call it Rebirth, because it's like, you're not going to be the same on the other side of this.
Yeah, that
And
is true.
what I realized from like the first, like what that group program did for those, for all of you who participated in it, it was this homecoming piece. It was like, we got to like really start to learn to listen, and to like really feel again, and to meet ourselves, maybe in a time or a place that we had never actually met ourselves in that way before. And then why it's like the rebirth is, it's like, what do you want to create now? Like, what do you want to bring forth? What do you want to birth into the world? And so, I have clients who are wanting to scale their businesses, launch businesses, write books, right? But it doesn't matter. It's like, it could be a relationship. It could be anything. And what's fun is, this is one of the last questions that I'm going to ask you before you let people know how people can get in touch with you, especially to participate in this work, is when we were on a coaching call, I don't know, I think it was last week together, we were talking about my work changing, and I'm no longer offering my group work in the way that I was. I'm at a time where my work is shifting, and I'm only offering private coaching right now. And you said, but look at the people who are creating these embodied movement experiences and group programs from your work, right? As this remembrance. And you're not the only one. There's other women who are doing the same thing as well. And it was the first time that I had reflected back to me, like, whoa, my mind, right, is telling me like, you're on a pause and people need this. And like, right, it's like putting this pressure on myself that I'm running out of time. And like, what if this is a mistake? And then what if like that container is closed? I don't know. I feel like it's still going to continue and evolve eventually in a new way. But for now, it feels like it's complete. And it was like, you reflected back to me that you now get to create, like, all these people who were a part of it get to create their own version of that. And I deeply appreciated that, because it taught me, like, what if that was what I signed up for? Like, this was the piece in my journey where this was it, so that others could take it and run with it, and I can allow my work to evolve in the way that it's being asked to.
Exactly. It was like passing the baton of like, here it's your turn, like the initiation of like, oh, okay, like the ripple effect of, you heard your call, you followed your intuition, you taught so many women such beautiful skills and beautiful ways of connecting to their intuition. And people like me heard our own call of following you, of like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn from you as much as I can, and then it gets to be passed through my filter, and now I get to teach it in a way that makes sense to me, in a way that's connecting with other women. And the people who have reached out to me just by what I've been posting on my Instagram has been incredible. And I never thought that I would post the videos that I'm posting. I sort of like had like envy of like, oh, Lindsay's doing that thing. How cool, how brave is she that she's like posting that, and she's moving in such a beautiful way, and in such a sensual way. She's really owning her femininity. And I remember being like, I want to do that. Why can't I do that? And I can do that. And I am doing it. And the first time that I posted something, I was like so terrified. But who has been like connecting to my work now, it's like, it's incredible what's happening. And it's all because you heard your call. And it's incredible. It really is a ripple effect. And I know that I'm not the only one teaching now because of it. And that's really beautiful, Linz. That's really beautiful.
Thank you. And I mean, the amount of times that I posted those videos and was like, oh, my family's on here. Oh, what are people going to think? I mean, the nausea and the fear and like the things that people would write, like I get lots of beautiful feedback, but I also have had people with not so nice feedback, and like really owning that and claiming that. And again, it's so supportive to be reflected back that me being in my bravery, because it was just this impulse of like, I've got to share this. And I went through sharing it for a several month period, and I haven't in a while, because it felt like it was more of an initiation for me. Like, it doesn't feel like I need to share that at this time. Again, maybe in the future I will. But right now it's like just following, like there was a reason why I needed to share, vulnerably expose myself in those ways. And it lives on social media. So people are still receiving it. Like people are still receiving the medicine there. And to hear how you were like, oh, I want to do that, and found your own way. And like now you're sharing content that also is like stretchy and makes you feel all the feels. Like this is part of it. It's like, this is what we move through when
Yeah.
we're being bold and courageous. So thank you. Thank you for that. And, finally, I would say, I'm only offering private coaching right now. Like this is one of the avenues that we can absolutely take. So I don't know, maybe I'll put my calendar link in the show notes below, or the ways that you can check out the Rebirth, private mentorship journey with me. But I would love for our community to get in touch with you. And if you're feeling the call, I mean, I have had last minute people sign up who just randomly like heard me on a podcast or saw a post, and they got on my email list and were like, same thing. I have no idea why, but like, oh, it's tomorrow. I want in. Like, is there room? And I've made space for people. So when this launches, it'll be launching, the opening class will be on Friday. So this is launching on a Monday. So yeah, how can people get on a call with you or connect with you if they just want to say hello? Or again, if anything resonated in this episode, but also if they're curious about this work. Because before you share, one thing that I want to share is like, yes, I'm mentoring you in a lot of ways, but you teach me as well. And this is what I believe is feminine leadership. Like Lindsay knows what she's doing. She has actual degrees. Like she's been performing creative expression, embodiment, art for a long time, and has, again, like so much lived experience and wisdom. And this is, I believe, not the first lifetime that she's, been a medicine woman and a priestess in this way, and helping, supporting humanity. So I just really wanted to bring you on here because it does feel important for me to let people know what you're up to, especially because I'm not offering it. And so for those of you who have been on the waiting list and have been curious, like this is a beautiful opportunity for you to say yes.
Yes. Please say yes. If you get a call, oh yeah. You can follow me on Instagram, Lindsay Lee _Lionheart. And that's Lindsay with an A-L-E-E. And my website is currently being revamped, so that will launch soon. And also you can get in touch with me via Calendly. I would love to have a conversation with you to see how I can support you. So if you feel like you've got this call, this pull, this magnetic pull, I would love to have a conversation with you. And if it's not being facilitated by me, I know plenty of other women who can assist. So I would love to have you join me. So
Yeah, and there's other offerings that you do as well in the realm of art, and
yeah.
also in the realm of energy work. So, just if you're feeling this impulse just to connect with Lindsay and just explore, I invite you to do that, because the group work is not the only way to be supported by her. And yeah, I'm really honored and grateful that, I mean, it's been like 2 years of us on this journey, and you saying yes to me supporting you and kind of showing you the path that I've walked. And I can't wait to continue to learn from you as well. So thank you, beautiful sister.
Thank you. Thanks, Linz.
Any final parting words with our community before we jump off?
Oh, I'm going to leave you with follow your heart, follow the art, And whatever the art manifests for you, allow it to blossom within creativity. Yeah.
I mean, if that's not a quotable, I don't know what is.
Oh, thank you so
So,
much. This
so,
was
so,
so
so
fun.
beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time and for following your heart, following your art, and for birthing this beautiful program and doing it scared, doing it anyways, doing it when the mental chatter gets loud, doing it when the conditioning comes in, and really just continuing to honor self. So thank you. I
Oh,
hope
thank
this
you.
conversation inspired you. Much love, everyone.